Good morning. As you can see, it's morning by the glare from the window behind me. This is Connie Swain, the connector, connecting you with the knowledge you need. Again, this is my final installment to talk about property tax protests. As you know, I've done two other videos speaking about the property tax process and about the exemptions. And today is the final one talking about protests. Thank you so much for joining me. But first, before I get into the topic, be sure to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell so you can stay in touch with all of the videos I do. I have some other ones coming up, so I want you to stay in touch with it. So why am I talking about property taxes now and the protest? If you didn't see my first video, I explained that in the fall, the property tax notices, which is the actual invoice you receive from the appraisal district, gets sent out. When it gets sent out, then of course the bill has to be paid. Now it doesn't have to be paid until the first of the year, but a lot of times people who receive the appraised value in the spring did not really look at it, get their invoice, and then they're surprised. Well, the process is such that it's a little too late now to file a protest. So the notice of value goes out in the spring, and then you have a certain period of time to file the protest, which is what I'm going to talk about. Then they evaluate all that, and then in the fall they send the actual invoice, and it's due in January. Again, if you have a mortgage company involved, then your mortgage company takes care of it, but you'll get a copy. So it's your responsibility to know what that value is and what is on that invoice so that you can stay in tune. And then you're not surprised if your house payment goes up or if your taxes have gone up. So that's why I'm talking about this now. And I'm putting it as a video on my YouTube channel so that you can have it next year when you go through this again. I live in Wise County, Texas, if you're watching this from somewhere else. And I am going to speak specifically to Wise County and their website. However, many counties, especially if they have an internet, a website, there are some very rural counties that may not have this information on their website, but most do. You can go to your appraisal district website to get most of this information. And it's pretty similar throughout the nation. So I'm talking about Wise County, and the Wise County website is www.wise-cad.com, and that stands for Wise County Appraisal District. So that's our district. Now I'm going to have a blog with a link to my blog down below with links to this information underneath, so you can go to that to get more information or to read it. So I want you to take a moment and go to the site, or even after I finish with this video, go to the site and familiarize yourself with the site. When you go to the WiseCAD home site, you will see a green banner, and in that banner you'll see the word forms. If you click on that word, you can scroll down and you'll see a section that says ARB protest. ARB stands for Appraisal Review Board, and everything goes through them. So if you click on that form or click on that, you'll see a document underneath that titled Taxpayer Rights and Remedies, and it's both in English and Spanish. And also in the bottom of the website, the CAD website, there's also a video. I'll refer to that a little bit more detail in a little bit, and it helps you know how to present your case. But it's really important that you take time to read through this document. It's got a lot of great information. It tells you how to file a protest, what you can file a protest on, the process, the steps, so forth and so on. Take time, print it off, read it, and understand it before you begin the process. A lot of headache and time and trouble and effort can be saved if you just read this document and then also watch the video. Also, it's important to know your rights, and in that document it talks about that. The state comptroller's office must help you with filing any protest. I know with our appraisal district, they really try to be helpful. So if you just call them with any questions, they can help you a lot as well. But you have rights, so make sure you understand those rights. Also, do your homework so you can speak to the process intelligently. It's kind of sad when I've talked to people who have tried to protest their value, but they didn't really understand the process, and it became very frustrating and sometimes even embarrassing for them. So understand what you're doing, know what it's about, understand the whole picture. That's why I did these videos. Go back and watch all 3 videos again. So the taxpayer rights and remedies documents explains that the ARB can only address the value given and the percentage of value. I'll explain that in a moment. They cannot speak to the rates the taxing entities charge. And the taxing entities are like the city, state, school, county, water district, different things like that. And you'll see all of those on there. Those, you're familiar. The school board meets, they vote on their tax rate. That rate is what they base their budget on. And then they pass that information down to the appraisal district who applies those rates. And they take your value and they apply the rates. And then that's how they come up with the taxes that you owe. Also, dates are key. Now, when you get your notice of appraised value in the spring, you'll get a document similar to this, and it is how to protest. It's the form you need to protest your value. When you get it in the spring, it's in with your value notification, and it has the deadline written at the top of the page. But if you don't see that, or you get everything online, the document says that the deadline to protest your value is 30 days after the notice is mailed, not the 30 days after you receive it. So you have to make sure you pay attention. If you're an online guru, I had told in the first video, maybe even I think it was in last week's video, and in my blog link, there is a website you can go to so you can see your statement online. The appraisal district filters it to a website called iSouthwest Data, and you can see your appraisal online, and you can get that information and understand that better there. But back to the document about taxpayer rights and remedies, tells you how to protest the values, what can be protested, how to resolve concerns informally. Some of the issues you have may be just informal. You write a letter, send it in with some proof, and it can be taken care of. You don't have to go through the formal review process. And it also tells you what steps to take to prepare for a formal hearing, and what to do if you don't agree with the decision. I mentioned a formal hearing. If you protest your values in a formal hearing, you may be called to appear before the appraisal board with the documentation. So make sure you understand that. And I talked about that in my first blog and our experience with this process. I had an informal protest. We were building this house that you see behind you, and we had put the building up, and when we got our taxes that year, we had put the outside shell up, and when we received our tax statement that year, they had valued it at 100% finished. Well, it wasn't. These walls weren't up. There was no floor, no ceiling. It was just a shell of a building. I took pictures, wrote a letter, sent it in. They gave me a percentage of complete. So they only charged the taxes based on the property being like 20% complete. And then over time, as the property became closer and closer to being complete, then they upped it until we reached 100%. So you maybe have to do the same thing. So the main protest, of course, is the appraised value given by the CAD. And there's a strange dichotomy. We all see it. We all get it. is that when we want to sell our home, we want to sell it for the highest value. But to pay our taxes, we want to only pay the lowest value. That's not unusual. But we have to understand how they value our property. In times past, the appraised value did not match the market value. Well, now the state has changed those determining factors. Every 3 years, the state requires the Central or County Appraisal District, depending on where you live, to reevaluate your property. That's why it fluctuates so much. And there's a lot of different processes they use to value that process or to value your property, but the most common is basic market value. And so I know in times past you may have seen your notice of appraised value or your tax value 20, sometimes even 40% less than market value. But in more recent years, it's becoming closer and closer to market value. And because they appraise it every 3 years, then that prevents you from getting into the situation where it goes up and stays up even though the market may go down. So just stay on top of that. So if you want complete information on all of this, go to the bottom section of the website, the CAD website, and you'll see the title menu. Underneath that, you'll see a link to Understanding the Property Tax System. That takes you to a link full of all kinds of different topics. And you may have a business or you may have other property, and you may find information in there that can benefit you in those areas as well. I'm specifically speaking to homestead property. If you go down and you look under that Understanding Property Tax System, once you click, you go down, you'll see a section entitled Appraisal. And then click on that, and then you'll see one that says Valuing Property. Click on that, and it takes you to the state comptroller's page and really explains how your property is evaluated. Now, I do want to get into the protesting piece now. So again, I spoke earlier, make sure you do your homework. Just because your property taxes went up doesn't mean it's wrong. So make sure you understand, if your property value may not have gone up, but the taxing entities may have voted and increased the tax value. You can't protest that. But what you can protest is the value placed on your property. So do your homework. You could do it yourself if you like. Many years ago, we were in a home and our taxes went up. I did the homework myself because I have a background in title work and in real estate. I knew how to do it. I protested it and they brought the property taxes down. But if you don't know how to do it, call a realtor. Many realtors, I've done this many times for people I know, for my clients. I'll do the homework and send it to them so that they can speak intelligently to this. Most realtors don't charge for this process, so take advantage of that. But if you go down to the bottom of the website, the CAD Wise-CAD website, you'll see a video section, and it says how to present your case at the Appraisal Review Board hearing for homeowners. Watch that video. Take the time to watch the video, read the other document I was referring to, and that will help you tremendously in this process. So what does a realtor do when they help you? Well, what they're going to do is a comparative market analysis, or a CMA. And that is the same basic document that we use when we meet with a client who wants to list their home for sale. We try to come up with the best value for that property in that area at that time. But one of the things that realtors can see that the common person out there on the internet, on Zillow or Realtor.com or any of those, cannot see is how much that property was actually sold for. The list price and the sold price is not the same. Many times, or sometimes it can be, but my experience shows that the majority of time it's not. It can often be under, sometimes depending on how hot the market is, it may even be over. And I tell people all the time, your property is worth only as much as somebody's willing to pay for it. So if somebody's willing to pay more, than what you thought it was worth, there you go. But it affects all of these values. So a realtor will look at the sold properties only. We have certain parameters. We try to get it in the same general square foot, same general construction. Is it a mobile home? Is it a stick-built home? Is it frame? Is it brick? We look at the age. We can only do a CMA based on a certain parameter of age. We cannot compare a 2015 home with a 1925 home. Doesn't work. We calculate the average square foot, price per square foot on those sold, and then we calculate it with your home. Now, when we do a CMA to actually list your property, we get into quite a bit more detail because of the amenities. So if you're on the acreage, if you have a shop, if you have a barn, if you have a pool, we do all of those calculations. But for the property owner looking to protest their value, we really kind of skin it down to the basics to give you a good idea of what the tax value should be. Keep in mind, however, we do have to consider those factors, because if you look at your tax statement, you are taxed on those factors. So it can take a little bit of time for realtors to find homes that match your home if you're in an uncommon area. So when you get into a metropolitan area where there are lot and block, city, it's all city, all subdivision, that kind of thing, huge subdivisions, it's easy to find comparable properties. But when you're in a rural area like we are, sometimes it can be a little bit more difficult. So why do we look on solds? Because that's really what the property's worth. If we looked at listings that are active right now, sometimes people list them really high. Sometimes they've got to get rid of them, so they list them low. But when a property is sold, most of them have had appraisals done by licensed appraisers, and then it tells us what that property is really worth. And also, we have to look at the date range. We cannot go back 2 years. The market fluctuates too much. So we try to look within 3 to 6 months. We can expand the area. We try to keep it in an area. We can expand the area, but we try not to go too much farther back than 6 months to get a value. Also, be honest with yourself about your value. If your value has skyrocketed and it caused your taxes to go up, and you get a realtor to do a CMA and it supports that value, then there's not a lot you can do about that other than looking to make sure you're getting the most exemptions possible. And if you try to go fight that using incorrect information, then it can be kind of rough, because they're not gonna agree with you, and they're gonna vote it down. You cannot, again, a person going in trying to put the same value on a 1925 frame home that has not been updated in 30 years and compare it to a 2015 home that has all the latest bells and whistles, it's not going to work. They're not going to accept it. So talk to them to see if there are some other remedies you may have. It's your responsibility to understand all of this and to see the options available. A good realtor is more than happy to help you, because they want you to enjoy your home and not be weighted down. They're not necessarily trying to get a listing out of you. They do want to help, because most realtors value referrals. And if we can help you with that process and you're happy with what we did, again, remember, most realtors don't charge, and you're happy with what we did, then you may refer us to your friends when they're ready to sell their home. So we want to help you and save you a lot of time and energy. So again, thank you for joining me today, and be sure to like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, and share this video with your friends. And stay tuned with all of my videos and blogs. This is Connie Swain, the Connector, connecting you with the knowledge you need to know for property taxes. Thank you for joining me today.